For our Board of Commissioners for Monday, October the 23rd, 2017. We will start our meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you.
Everyone rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have your agenda before you. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? In particular, the 7 items appearing first on our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the one correction to the minutes that had that tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Michael Fiocco, seconded by Dave Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. I note that the consent agenda includes a resolution honoring our veterans, and that will be appearing in several different fashions. Jay Farrell has just asked me to sign the resolution honoring our veterans so that he can put it as his place of business, and it will be distributed elsewhere in the newspaper, etc. Our first public hearing tonight is a special use permit. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Michael Fiocco, seconded by Pamela Baldwin. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Excuse me, we did not approve the regular agenda.
That's fine.
May we have a motion for that?
Yes, and may I also add one item simply for consideration and brief discussion, resolution opposing electricity rate increases for coal ash and material costs.
Where should we put that then?
Suppose that would be new business?
Okay, all right. Very good. We'll add that. It is a resolution, draft resolution?
Yes, draft resolution, I'd just like to introduce it
Okay.
for consideration.
Very good. All right, so we are in public hearing now to hear the special use permit for Christie's Floor and Gift Shop. Victoria will lead us in that discussion.
Thank you. Dennis DeFrancesco and Christy Cook are requesting a special use permit to operate a gift shop along U.S. Highway 64 Business West in the RA2 zoning district, where antique and gift retail stores are required to obtain special use permits. The applicants will be using the existing structures on the property for their business. The structure to be used as a gift shop is 1,200 square feet. The combined area of the structures to be used is 1,900 square feet, requiring 10 parking spaces, which can be met by the current parking lot. Staff is recommending approval of the request.
And there are no speakers signed up for this particular item, is that correct?
We would like to sign up.
Yes. If you'll then come to the podium and give us your name and address, and speak for not more than 2 minutes.
Good evening, Board. My name is John Mataratando. This is my wife, Denise Mataratando. Our address is 2539 US 64 Business West, located just to the west of the applicant's property. And we have some questions about just how that special permit operates and about really the nature of that business. Who do we address those questions to? Is there?
I'm the applicant, and I can speak to
Oh,
this.
okay, great. We were wondering, what is the nature of a gift? I know it's gifts and antiques, but can you just flesh out that idea of what the gifts
Sure, it'll just be simple gifts that people can pick up.
Excuse me, please. This is a public hearing in which you are welcome to state your objections to the issue, but we cannot engage back and forth. Certainly, after the meeting or after you've spoken, the applicant is more than glad to meet with you and answer your questions. And so It's just that we can't have that kind of dialogue
I
here.
see. I understand that. I do have a bunch of questions. I don't know if I object or we support it until I know a little bit more about the business. I don't
Let's do
know quite
this.
how to do that.
Our planning director is here, Jeff Jones, and the applicant is here. And if you all would meet, then that would give us an opportunity. We would still be able to accept public comment by letter. When is the closing period for that, Mr. Messick? No?
Not for a special use permit.
Not for special use permit.
Make a decision based on the record, and the record is here.
Why don't you have the gentleman ask his questions to you all, and then the applicant can answer those.
Excellent.
Okay.
If you'll ask the questions and you'll
Okay,
get the
sure.
response.
So I'll address the board. I guess that makes sense. So, like I just said about the nature of the gifts and the antiques. Also, what are the hours? Do the hours include Sunday hours? Will there be any extended hours for special events or for the holiday season? Do they plan on hosting any special events? I know antiques, like we just had the antique fair in town. I was wondering if they were planning anything along those lines. Also about the infrastructure, the existing, will any of that infrastructure be used for what it was in the past, the landscaping business, I believe, and there are still some infrastructure there to support that. I was wondering if they were going to use that. Will they sell any food or drink, or will they have any place, sit-down place for food or drink, or vending machines or anything like that? Also, how do they plan to utilize the rest of those buildings on the property? I believe there are about four different buildings. And I was wondering if they were going to utilize that for anything. And I guess that's about it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we'll hear from the applicant now. Are there any other speakers with respect to this matter? Okay. Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm Christy Clark Cook, and I am the one that proposed this. And to answer the questions, we will utilize the two main buildings that are on the property. There's a larger building, and just to the left of that or to the east of that, there's a smaller building. The larger building will be used for the gift shop and to have like a show cooler where people can come in and pick up fresh floral arrangements. The building just east of that will be used for our workroom. So that's where we'll actually prepare the flowers, and in there we'll also have a consultation room on the other side of that where people can meet if they need a private consultation for funeral florals or something like that, so it'll be away from the business. The other structures we're going to use there, the back building will not be used, and the outdoor buildings will not be utilized unless, because we're not planning on doing much landscaping things there. There won't be any changes to the current infrastructure. We're actually not going to have any antiques. We will not have any food or drink, no vending machines. And unless we have like a holiday open house or something, we're not planning on having any special events there, and we will not be open on Sundays unless we're there just preparing flowers for funeral work or something that requires us to be in there, but the shop would not be open.
And the nature of the gifts?
Oh yes, the nature of the gifts would be simple gifts that you could pick up, like candles, coffee cups, just normal gift type things. Nothing, no antiques. It would all be some retail things, candles, coffee cups, things like that. We'll also have an area in there where people can come in and see our wares and be able to interact with that. A bar where people can come in and get floral arrangements made on the spot if they need those.
What kind of lighting are you anticipating having? Lighting in the parking lot or off the building?
There is some existing lighting that is on the sign out front. That would stay. We've already spoken with Victoria about the sign, and we're aware that that can't be changed in the right-of-way and the existing laws that are on that. And we will just use whatever existing. The hours will probably be more like 9 to 5 or 10 to 6, something like that. So we won't be operating into the night or evening on a normal basis.
Mr. Ford, do you have any questions?
The gentleman that spoke, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
My name is John.
John, and you're on the west side of this?
Yes, we're basically attached to that property. We bought from the Flints who own...
Near Flint property?
Yeah,
Right.
we bought their property. So they're closely related in decor and the whole bit. So I think we have a little more at stake than maybe some others do.
Right. Thank you.
I noticed it's all gravel, is that correct?
It is.
Okay. And you've got only required 10 parking spaces, so that's fine with gravel. But I didn't see any arrangement for handicap parking, which gravel doesn't work.
There are 2 or 3 existing handicap parking spaces with signs.
Okay, and they're on concrete?
It leads up to a concrete walkway, yes, they can
Is the
get
parking
to.
space concrete?
I would have to look back at the plan and see. But I don't believe the parking space is on concrete. That's something we could accommodate.
Yeah, I think that would have to be done to meet code, so that'd be something that I'm noticing.
Any further questions or comments?
As far as that, do you have flowers delivered there?
We will have florals delivered there, yes, ma'am.
So I'm assuming that's a van instead of like a big truck.
It would be. It would be like a... And we may, go and pick those up and bring those back in our cargo van. Wouldn't be a big truck, though.
Do you anticipate a time in which you might be growing your own in the greenhouses behind the shop, in which you said you would not be using those 2 buildings?
No, ma'am, we don't.
Anything else, Board? Any other speakers from the audience that failed to sign up? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Michael Fiocco, seconded by Jay Carroll. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Motion carried. With respect to the citizens' matters, we have one person signed up tonight, and that is Holmes Graybill. Holmes, would you come to the podium, please?
My name is Holmes Graybill. I'm at 3348 Alston Chapel Road, so a little outside of the town boundaries. But I just wanted to speak a little bit in support of the resolution that I think you all are going to be considering next month, which is saying that the town of Pittsboro should support the U.S. Congress in addressing climate change, and specifically to look at a type of carbon pricing called carbon fee and dividend. I've been working with a group called Citizens Climate Lobby for the last 5 years, and we have been building the political will in Congress to do something about climate change, and we are advocating for this carbon fee and dividend type of carbon pricing. And I just wanted to say I really am excited about carbon fee and dividend for a couple of reasons. One is that it promises to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which are the drivers of climate change. And it does it in a way that's actually of benefit to the economy. There's been a lot of proposals on how to deal with climate change, but a lot of them ask citizens to pay a price or for there to be regulations put in place. But carbon fee and dividend is actually a benefit to the economy, creating millions of jobs across the country, providing a little bump to the GDP, and actually promoting health in the American citizens. And the second reason I'm excited about is that it really is garnering bipartisan support. There's a group in Congress right now called the Climate Solutions Caucus. And they accept members in pairs. There's a Democrat has to bring a Republican in, vice versa. They started the year with 18 members and are now up to 60. There's also a conservative group spearheaded by some luminaries of the Republican Party, George Shultz, James Baker, Henry Paulson, all secretaries of state of the Treasury. And they're also putting forth a climate change solutions plan called the Conservative Case for Carbon Dividends. So it's a very similar plan to the carbon fee and dividend plan. Anyway, I wanted to lend my support to you all in considering this resolution next month. And I do have some materials if you all want to look at them. Our carbon fee and dividends legislative proposal, and I also have the Conservative Case for Carbon Dividends if you all want to.
Is there a website too?
Yep. Citizens Climate Lobby has a great website with lots of information about carbon fee and dividends. And I know this Climate Leadership Council with James Baker and George Schultz has a website also.
Do you have a copy?
Yep.
Do you have a copy for each one?
I don't have a copy for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Our next item is Commissioner updates and Mayor update and report. This has been a busy time since our last meeting. On the 12th of October, I attended my first TARPO meeting, Transportation Group. I am an alternate to the person who is from Flower City, who serves as a regular person on that board. It was a very interesting meeting. On the 14th of October, I started this. There's so many interesting things that one gets to do as mayor. I sent greetings from the town of Pittsboro to the participants in the Monster Run at Pittsboro Primary School, and then attended the NAACP Candidate Forum that same day. On the 17th, the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum was held. On the 17th, also, an event in Sanford that I attended regarding community participation. On the 18th of October, I attended a lunch at the community college with Congressman Mark Walker, and on that same day attended a meeting at Chatham Park with the county commissioners and staff members of the Catawba County Board of Commissioners. The 19th saw Chatham Conservation Group, which had a very interesting program that I think you'll be hearing more of. And on the 20th, we all participated in Opportunity Chatham. One of the things that I wanted to bring up also, since Holmes was here speaking on climate change, is over last weekend I had a very exciting invitation to attend the Climate Change Conference for Mayors in Chicago. And I think we were one of the very first to join Climate Mayors, which is an organization that basically promises to support the Paris Accords, even though the federal government may or may not be adhering to those. And so when I spoke with Brian Grusbeck about traveling to Chicago, he indicated that out-of-state travel was something that this board has not done in the past. But the hotel room for the night is going to be provided by Climate Mayors and by Rahm Emanuel, who's the mayor of Chicago. And just the opportunity to get together with almost 400 of us now that are Climate Mayors, I thought was a wonderful opportunity. And Brian Grusbeck suggested that we bring it before the board to see whether or not authorization for travel might be given under these circumstances. So I'd be open for your thoughts on that.
Support? Absolutely.
shall the...
So I'll just interject my support as well, and I also want to brag on you a bit, Mayor Perry, because I was at an event last week, Sustainable Transportation Fleet Conference. So this is large corporations and governments of all size who have fleets of vehicles. And someone I'd never met before approached me and mentioned that they understood that Pittsboro was the very first municipality in North Carolina to have our mayor join the Climate Mayors Organization. So that felt really good to have that recognition and not even know about it. So congratulations.
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't know I was the first either. So.
And yes, I think it would be a modest but strong symbol of support that we should pay your airfare to Chicago and back.
I would be excited to bring back lots of Thank you.
And it's far enough ahead that we ought to be able to get a good ticket.
Yes.
Chicago, for sure.
So are there other updates from the board regarding the Economic Development Commission or the RPO or Fairground, PDA? You can name them all. Triangle J, Council of Governments on Main Street?
I have a slow week, so not much to report other than November 18th at the 19th tree lighting ceremony. There will be the unveiling of the Main Street Pittsboro town slogan. So you've got still time to enter slogan for Pittsboro, 7 words or less.
Anything else to report?
Climate change, nothing to report from the meeting except that I was made aware of the Citizens Climate Lobby Project, which is an independent project of the County Climate Change Advisory Committee. It's not a part of it, but it was brought to our attention, and I think it's a really fine idea, especially because it uses market functions to achieve the goal of pollution reduction. So thank you again for presenting that.
If there are no further updates, we'll go to old business. The first is the site plan review by Victoria Bailiff, who will introduce us to the capital ready concrete site.
This site plan, SP 2017-02, Capital Ready Mix Concrete has submitted plans for review and recommendation. The proposal is to upgrade the current site and main structure for use in a concrete operation. This is a 15.75-acre site zoned into heavy industrial located at 270 Moncure Pittsboro Road. The plans for this site have been reviewed in accordance with the town's applicable development ordinances by the appropriate departments, and staff is recommending approval. The Planning Board reviewed these plans at their meeting on October 2nd and recommended approval of the request in a vote of 6-0. The applicant is here if you have any
Other questions for either Victoria or the applicant?
So I've received some correspondence about this, but I haven't received very much in detailed concerns. The concerns have been rather vague, and I've encouraged folks to attend or express their concerns, and I still haven't gotten them. So I think that it's a strange situation where different people have emailed me about it, but again, not expressing any specific questions or concerns we put our fingers on. But it does occur to me to wonder, because there will be some amount of new traffic, truck traffic in and out, what the company might be able to do in the direction of reduced transportation-related emissions. Clean diesel, particulate filters, propane or natural gas instead of diesel.
I'm Jim Lockridge, owner of Capital Ready Mix. In our business, where we're located, I think our only option is diesel. Unless we had a large propane facility somewhere to fill up, which we don't, make it very difficult. They're all brand new trucks. They're very efficient for pollution and all that. So, as far as the traffic goes, I think it'd be less or the same traffic that it was before when it was operating as a chicken manufacturing plant. I don't see any difference.
Are there other questions?
I don't have any questions, just maybe a comment. As far as traffic, I understand that when the processing plant was in order, they had up to 400 or 500 employees, and we're getting around 70 trucks in and out a day. So I think we're going to be seeing less traffic than what it was when it was a chicken plant myself, processing plant. And I do commend you on what a great job you've done to clean up that eyesore corner.
Thank you.
It really looked bad.
How many people will you be hiring?
Probably about 20.
And at some point we had some questions about the possibility of reuse water with this project.
We could use, someone was up to the town about trying to get hooked into the reuse water and storing it in the tanks that we have and using that, or we could use our own reclaimed water. But we could just use regular city water. Yeah.
When you said your own reclaimed water, you mean the water, for example, that comes off when you wash your trucks?
Yes.
Okay.
And when we wash out our trucks, we can repurpose that water to go back in the barrel again.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Moved by Michael Fiocco, second by Pamela Baldwin. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Our next item for old business is the Tinker Solar Plant. Site plan review.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is a continuation of a site plan that we brought before you 2 weeks ago. This is for Strata Solar. Just kind of go through the rundown of what we're proposing here. The proposal is to construct a solar farm in which solar panels will be erected on approximately 44.88 acres. And is located somewhere not adjacent to Pittsboro Moncure Road, but some land that Chatham Park owns in that vicinity. This is the site plan with the access road coming off of Pittsboro Moncure Road, and then the actual solar farm itself. We're here because the last meeting there was some discussion brought on by staff as to whether or not the plans were sufficiently meeting all of the Chatham Park in-town requirements. At that time, staff was under, we wrote in our staff report that we felt like it was not complete submittal because of the Chatham Park master plan and how the non-residential projects and open space requirement was set. We were under the impression that any non-residential project would have to provide for open space. That any non-residential project could, in fact, get you gross square footage. That was not the intent, I believe, today of the master plan, and I wrote that in my memo to you all that you have before you.
I do believe the intent was to tie open space and the requirement for open space as it relates to non-residential projects to those projects that have gross square footages and in terms of buildings. If you get a definition of gross square footage, as I've included in the memo, usually in terms kind of can float around, but it's usually the sum of areas in a building that has walls, and those walls, those areas that would be occupied. So I think when Chatham Park wrote the master plan and this town approved the master plan using terms of gross square footages and GSF, that was intending to tie open space with respect to non-residential to gross square footages. Furthermore, the 5 and 15% rule ties those commercial projects that would have gross square footages to that percentage as well. So you can see how the non-residential and the 5 and 15% rule that the board at the time gave Chatham Park to continue to build was based off of gross square footages. The master plan was written in a way that I think the intent is there to tie non-residential to gross square footages. When I give you, we do have a new open space element that was delivered to staff. Too late to get to your packet. I'll give those to you tonight. And Chatham Park, in this new element, this new drafted element, has a definition of what gross square footage would be moving forward, which expands a little bit on what staff has put in its memo, but I think what they're trying to do is make it very clear as to open space and non-residential projects that is tied to buildings and gross square footages of those buildings. Things that were tossed around as potential projects that could have gross square footages last time that we met on this, parking lots. In fact, the plan that's before you, the solar panels themselves, those are the types of projects that the new definition and the element that you'll receive tonight tries to clear up.
And that's their proposal, right? We may want to make it.
That's right. This is certainly a draft. You can read that, and we can move forward with that at a later time. I'm just trying to set, this is all that's happened since we last met 2 weeks ago on this particular project. I do know the applicant is here. Chatham Park is represented as well. So staff is recommending approval of the site plan. We do feel like this is a complete submittal, as it is not a building and does not have gross square footages for buildings. So for that, and again, we're recommending approval.
I mean, I can understand, what your point about square footage and things like that. My concern is the whole reason we have the open space requirements is to protect some of the areas that are being cleared for businesses. And to me, this is just one of those things that kind of falls between two things. It's kind of a building because it takes up square footage. You've got structures, you've got solar panels. You could theoretically count the whole area contained in solar panels as square footage. It doesn't have walls. I see the fuzziness, but to me, this is something we need to think about going forward, because this is something that requires, this was a beautiful wood that has been pretty much clear cut. And the whole area of the open space requirement is to protect the town from getting completely wiping out trees. So I don't know how we address this, but I think that we really need to look at this. This is one of the early projects that we just come before us, and already we're scrapping the open space requirement. And I just hate to see that happen. I just feel like there was a lot of wood that was clear for this time to support the project, but I just think that this is one of those things we need to look at, because it is in between the cracks. It is a plant, it is a business, but it's just a business that doesn't require walls. But it requires clearing land.
It does.
And, I mean, to me, it's no different than like, I don't know if you had a chance to, I know the last meeting you talked about checking with other municipalities to see how they're addressing this issue. And I don't know if you've had a chance to do that.
Yeah, I did check around to see if anybody else, what I did the very next day was try to figure out how others classified these types of panels, if there were buildings, certainly there's structures. And some jurisdictions do look at structures differently than buildings, and how the structures impact the land and how that might play into tree protection. What we're talking about is kind of two different things here. We're talking about tree protection, but really what we were talking about was open space, and there's not a whole. If the master plan had been written as maybe some of you wanted it to be written as any structure or impact of the land would have to provide for open space or tree protection, or really open space where we haven't gotten the tree protection element as of yet, then we might be in a different area. One caveat that I know Chatham Park brought up at the last meeting, and that they readily agree to, is that the 1320 acres of open space that is designated that they will provide is whether they develop 1 acre or 7,200 acres. So that's some reassurance that what is the requirement for them to provide open space is there, and their own record is saying that's going to be there. I think what is different here is that why trees have to come down is not open spaces, and that might be more of tree protection, and how this use and other uses that have to take down trees to function, how that impacts tree protection in the future. I do believe that they have minimized the tree clearing as much as possible to make the site function as a solar farm. They're not erroneously taking down trees that don't need to be taken down, enough for the street to get the path to get back to the farm, and then for the panels to operate. And
I'm curious, like, there's some other, I was thinking about some other things that might fall into this gray area. And there's things like a campground, that if you just count square footage, it's just going to be the little check-in spot, for example.
There are non-residential uses that I'm sure we could go through the pages of uses that wouldn't necessarily have buildings, gross square footages, that would impact the land.
I mean, like outdoor seating with restaurants. Sometimes restaurants have places that have walls around, just a low wall, and it's part of the restaurant. Does that count as square footage or not? Things like that. Mobile home parks, lumber mills, amphitheaters, radio towers, those kinds of things. There's quite a few things
I'm
that
sure
are
we can come
not
up
really
with a
written
good
into the
list of
definition,
things.
but still would require cutting down those trees.
Right.
Making an impact on our streams and rivers and our forests.
Right. So I think what the concern is not necessarily open space. I think we see that open space is an important issue, but it could be stormwater that we're still trying to get through, tree protection that we're trying to get through, and those new drafts will be coming to you whenever Chatham Park delivers those. Those are sort of the questions that you all have to get through, especially with tree protection. I know there was a healthy discussion a month or so back with Chatham Park at our workshop on tree protection.
I think those things are important, but to me, part of the open space requirement is to compensate somewhat for some of the forest that's being taken down.
Right.
And these things require require a lot of clearance. So there should be some sort of open space.
Well, I think we've got clearly non-residential development that doesn't meet the definition that would require open space. And you mentioned several of them. But every bit of roadway that gets constructed is non-residential development. And yes, it has an impact and it does clear trees. But it is part of the land development, it is a requirement for our civilization.
It's not the same thing as a business.
Well, I don't distinguish between a business and impact to the land. And I think open space, tree coverage, stormwater, limits on impervious surface all contribute to the whole. And I don't think open space needs to carry a disproportionate load, and the load it's carrying has been defined. And it is that non-residential development that equals gross square footage that is buildings. So yes, there will be, farms will clear lots and lots of land, and it will be a business. And we need that as well. And so there's all kinds of non-residential development that's going to occur that doesn't have the requirement of open space.
Farmland's not an allowed use in the PDD.
So it won't be happening.
That's my understanding.
Is there space within the PDD that we still have, I understand about tree protection and those things, but as far as this definition, I know it's defined here, but is there any way moving forward that we can cover things like this in gray areas?
Yeah.
To me, this is not the same thing as a food. What is the infrastructure? This is a business.
Providing electricity, that's
Sure. But we expect things of Duke Power, and we expect things of others.
right, but they are infrastructure.
I agree, but they still are required to meet requirements.
Right,
They
and
can do anything they want, but they do not want to treat it.
Right, but one of them is not to provide open space.
I'd like to hear the thoughts of the rest of the
Well, I appreciate your points, Commissioner Foley, and I can't disagree with a single thing you've said. I agree with all of it. I do think that my understanding of the open space is that it is intended, the open space element is intended to some extent to compensate for impacts on the landscape of non-commercial development, non-residential development. And the other new twist on this that came up in conversations over the past 2 weeks was the notion that somehow the conversation about open space might, on the Tinker Project, might have a flip side to it. And that any of our conversations or our desire that we see open space preserved elsewhere, perhaps, or on this site as buffers, or anything like that, that might have a counterpoint of eating into the amount of total square footage allowed under the 5 and 15 rule. So just to be clear here, the idea that was put to me was, oh my goodness, if we allow open space to be considered with the Tinker Project, then that somehow encroaches upon the amount of total square footage of buildings with 4 walls and a roof that Chatham Park can construct under the 5 and 15 rule. And that had never entered my thoughts. And I just wanted to share that with the board, that I thought that was just, that was not my objective, it was not my intent, it was not my hope. And in fact, I would prefer that commercial development proceed at pace, and that that square footage precede, in fact, residential, but I don't want to go there. But I just want to emphasize the point that my concerns that I share with Commissioner Foley about us not, right out of the gate, with one of our first non-commercial projects, writing off the requirement for open space. My concerns about that didn't have anything to do with total square footage of building space for commercial use. Now that said, Mary Perry, you and I had a conversation about this, and I'd like to ask you to reflect back, if you can help me remember. You seem to think that there might be a kind of a third path here, and if you could articulate that, I would very much appreciate that.
Well, and I think you actually were the person that brought it up at the end of the discussion 2 weeks ago, which was that this project has been mandated by Chatham Park to have particularly broad buffers, and that those buffers actually exceed those that would be required ordinarily. And that although I agree with you that I'm not comfortable in waiving on the very first try something which might very well set a precedent, I do think that the fact that there is, I believe, close to 18 acres in buffer around the Tinker Solar plant is speaks to the protections that it's going to receive, and speaks to almost a voluntarily set aside that Chatham Park is making. I think it's a wonderful compromise. I don't know, the definition of compromise is indeed something that doesn't make either party very happy, but you were on the edge of articulating that when we last met together, and I think it's an excellent compromise. We've got the space with a small O, open space, not a capital O, open space. It would not restrict further development years from now, which was one of Michael Fiocco's discussions, because if you set aside that open space as capital O, open space, then what do you do if the solar plant becomes obsolete in 15 or 20 years down the road? And so being small O, open space, it was allowed to reallocate that area, and if there was a building there, then it could become capital O, open space. So,
And then at that point, that piece of property would meet the requirements for it.
Well, once there's gross square footage, there is the obligation to provide open space. And John, what you were mentioning about the 5 and 15%, I think last time we were talking, I was mentioning that we consider this gross square footage that has an open space requirement, that it, by definition, must then be deducted from the total 22 million gross square footage. So it is either pregnant or it's not. And we can't have it have a open space component but not deduct from the total, because the total is the figure that generates the amount of open space.
but I think too, the idea was that if we didn't, I think this was Bette Wilson Foley's concern, was that if we didn't allocate the open space at this point in time, there might not in the future be area that could meet the requirements of a stick-built building on that tract. Well, there isn't quite, but there's almost, depending upon what size square footage the building is. But there would be some degree of flexibility, and it would allow everybody to go forward feeling that there was an extraordinary amount of buffer, that there was, that then it gives us some time to be able to develop a more understandable policy about these things that are falling between cracks. And it would also reinforce our idea that we're interested in this being an exceptional, extraordinary development.
Well, I'll say this, based on the information that Mr. Messick provided to the board, and as well Chatham Park, all of the legal information that I read concerning the buildings and square footage, this is actually, according to that definition, not considered a building. So therefore, it is not applicable to the open space requirement. Just based on, again, all the information that was provided to us and information from the state also defined as what the state defined as a building, so forth and so on. I'm sure everybody read that because it's very, very informative. So really, that was my concern, and that is why I asked to look at other municipalities, so forth and so on. But that provided the information that I needed to determine that basically it's not a requirement at this point, but that could be something we could work forward to and look at again. And also, I did the idea of having the 19 acres of open space voluntarily giving that's great, but we do need to look at that information going forward, how we can sort of bring that into what we want to have. Yes.
Further discussion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Michael Fiocco, seconded by
Second.
Jerry J. Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Our next item of business is the affordable housing rental strategy and toolbox with Allison Romine.
Yes,
Thank you. From Triangle J Council of Governments. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So I was here at the end of July and I presented on our draft, Chatham Housing Committee's draft recommendations for Pittsburgh and for the county overall. And I'm back tonight just to ask for your adoption for our full report. I'll provide a brief update on what we've changed and sort of overview of the document itself, and then answer any questions that you guys have. So this is the report that the Housing Committee completed in July. And basically it's a report that includes the background information around the housing, especially the rental housing issue in the county. And then the second half of the document basically is the strategy toolbox, so a whole number of strategies you could use if you choose to in the county. A couple of key things that I'd like to point out. So the executive summary here is sort of a cheat sheet for the different priorities for each of the jurisdictions. The committee felt very strongly that different jurisdictions had different issues and priorities, and so those first few pages pull out the key issues of each jurisdiction and then which strategies might be the best to approach to address those issues in that context. Another thing I'd like to point out is at the very back of the document in the appendix, there's an 11 by 17 document that is the goals matrix. And this basically lays out all of the goals and strategies in one location. So if you want to kind of look at everything in one location, this is a great place to look. It includes the goals set by the committee, the outcomes they'd like to see from those goals, and then strategies, partners, and metrics to measure progress over time, as well as the baseline data for each of those metrics at this point in time. So those are the two sort of main pieces of this document. If you are trying to do a Cliff Notes version, I think that the matrix and the executive summary are really good places to start. And last thing I'll mention is also in the appendix there's an affordable housing glossary, which a lot of our member communities in the Triangle J region have found very valuable because there's a lot of lingo thrown around in the affordable housing field. And so if you have terms you hear that you don't quite know what it means or don't quite know how it fits into the bigger picture, that glossary is a great place to look for those definitions. And if there's anything that you hear that you'd like definitions of, please let us know, because we have it on our website and we update it every time we have a new term added that people have asked about. So it's sort of a living document. And that's a great place to sort of get the basic information around some of the language that's being used. Over the past year, the Chatham Housing Committee was a group that was elected officials who met for this past year, and that task force has ended with this document. And we are now moving into the next phase, which is a citizen-based affordable housing advisory committee at the county level that will be moving forward over this next several years. So we'll look at affordable rental and homeownership and transitional housing across the county. So what we're hoping to get tonight is your adoption of this report, and then we'll start meeting with that committee this fall, and they will be working to implement the strategies in this report, as well as other strategies around homeownership and transitional housing. So with that, do you have any questions or comments? I'd be happy to answer them.
exceptional job.
Thank you.
Wow.
I mean, I've been scratching away at affordable housing ideas for several years now, and there's lots and lots of stuff in here I've never come across, so it was enlightening and encouraging, really.
Great, glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I would like to echo that aspect, but I've told you that before. You all did a great job, very, very informative, and look forward to the next phase of looking at affordable, purchasing affordable homes.
And thanks for all your involvement in both committees. Put a lot of work into it, and I appreciate that.
Have you selected a committee?
Yes, so we have Chatham County appointed people to the committee. I think it's I want to say it was two of their meetings ago, and then we've also gotten appointments from Siler City, and I know Pamela Almonser from Pittsburgh, and I think we're waiting to hear on the Goldston appointment, and once we have that confirmed, we're hoping to have our first meeting in mid-November. We haven't decided the date or the location yet, but that's coming soon.
These are open to the public, these meetings?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's basically an advisory committee, so it has members on the committee. We'll also have public available to provide comment if they wish to.
Pam, you're representing Pittsburgh. Do we have an alternate? Did we? Yeah. Okay. Well, for the record, I'd like to be informed. I'd like to tag along.
I move that we accept the report.
Second. Moved by John Bonnet, seconded by Bette Wilson. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We are at manager's update on project. We have the coal resolution. John Bonnet,
Yes, thank
did
you.
introduce that to us?
So I guess this could be either new business or commissioner's concerns, but let me share copies. I'll have one and pass it. So I think that we all recognize the vital importance of Duke Energy in providing really critical utility service to our community. And the job they do of providing reliable supply of electricity is commendable. And they do it at some of the lowest costs in the nation. And they do a pretty good job of minimizing environmental impact, but they have failed on some occasions. And our town uses significant amounts of electricity, and that's our immediate responsibility, policy guiding Mr. Grusbeck and staff in that regard. But for that reason, we have a very strong interest in Duke Energy's request for an increase in their rates that they charge us and others for electricity. And I think, as members of this board, that it's incumbent upon us to be responsible for considering the impact of those rates, those rate increases on our neighbors and ourselves. Because there's some folks in Pittsburgh who have really, really tight pocketbook concerns. And this proposed rate increase on the residential side is 16.7%, and the math works out to about $200 a year for a residential account. Now, the purpose of that proposed rate increase, there's some good things and some bad things that they've asked for as a result of this increase. And again, this is just under consideration by the State Utilities Commission. They're the regulators in North Carolina, and they have to sign off on it. They're proposing to, I've got the bullets there in the fourth whereas statement. They're proposing to modernize the electric system, plan, design, and perform pre-construction efforts for a nuclear generation plant, the Lee nuclear plant, which they simultaneously propose to quit that project. They've canceled that project. They announced that on the same day as this rate increase. They want to manage and close their coal ash basins. They want to improve reliability and continue to improve service to their customers, including new billing systems and intelligent metering, the smart meters that we're hearing so much about. Additionally, there's another project they proposed, which is a grid reliability and resiliency rider, an additional fee that they're marketing and branding the Power Forward Carolinas program. And that's where they're going to do a lot of stuff on the hardware side, the wires and the poles, to make our electric system more resilient in the face of storms, winds, ice, car wrecks, and such like that. The problem, I believe, is that they have asked for a total of $336 million over this time frame for various costs related to the coal ash. Costs they've already incurred in cleaning up, closing lagoons, coal ash dumps, and ongoing and future costs to move the ash to more safe disposal. The other part of the problem, in my opinion, is that they're asking for recovery of $368 million in planning, pre-construction of a nuclear plant they aren't going to build. And the point that I've made here with this resolution is that for both of those items, the evidence was very clear that that was the wrong path in terms of managing their electric monopoly and managing their business. It was very clear that there were other better ways of managing the ash. It was very clear from such widely respected organizations as Moody's Investor Services, which basically downgraded Duke Energy because of that nuclear investment, just above the level of junk bond status, by the way, and using the language bet the farm, and warning that there could be future rate shocks to electricity customers. And then in 2009, the Citigroup Global Markets analysts, in discussing the various risks that could occur with new nuclear projects, said that any of these individual risks could be enough to bring the largest utility to its knees. So on the nuclear side and the coal ash side, I think the evidence was just very clear and very abundant that those were the wrong pathways that they continued down despite all of the signals, market signals, customer signals, elected officials. And so I submit this for the board's consideration. I have put forward a draft resolution. If you have any concerns or would like to debate or improve or change any of the language, I'm open to it. I believe that the therefore be it resolved clause is very modest, but I think that the evidence is really almost stomach churning. And so I think that I hope that you'll find this worthy of your consideration. Maybe I will just go ahead and read the last three items in the therefore be it resolved. So section 1, I suggest that we as a body ask the North Carolina Utilities Commission that we urge them to reduce Duke Energy's rate increase request associated with coal ash and nuclear costs to the lowest amount reasonable under applicable law, and to deny such increase if the Commission finds that it is not warranted, and rate increases should be spread out over time to minimize harmful impacts on customers. Number 2, I suggest that the North Carolina Utilities Commission should be urged to support the rate increases associated with grid modernization, intelligent metering, improved reliability, improved billing, to allow customers information necessary to conserve energy and for new generation from renewable sources. So what I'm saying there is I think that there are commendable purposes behind this rate increase, but there's some that we need to draw the line at and say that they're not moral, they're not acceptable, they're not prudent. And then three, given the difficult local and all the circumstances surrounding our efforts to budget and carry out the business of government, any rate increases should be made effective in the future at the beginning of governmental fiscal years to assist in budget planning. So thank you very much for letting me present this. Again, I'm very eager to have friendly edits or critical edits, whatever you might share.
I think this is a great, something that looking after the citizens of this community, and also making a statement about, we'll see what's going on. And I think your resolutions at the end are very reasonable. Very well.
John, thanks for putting this together. I'll dig into it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. All right, and let's put this on the agenda then for the first meeting in the month. And Brian Griswold, I believe we're going to update.
Madam Mayor, and before I forget, Jeff Jones asked me to pass out additional elements, open space, there's a mark, and I'll mark a copy. If I don't give these to you now, or I'll walk off, it will be on my desk.
Thank you. Can you get this electronically as well? If we have it already?
I'll ask. I would imagine we have them electronically. You just handed them to me before.
Great.
I think you received them tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Also in the category, before I forget, Halloween hours this year. I know very important that we're waiting for this information. October 31st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll put something out on the social media on that as well. I think that's pretty consistent with what we've done in previous years. It's mainly geared towards safety. It's getting dark now, obviously, right around 7 p.m. So that allows for some milling about during dark, but certainly not too much. It's again, this is a guideline. It's nothing that people will be cited for if they're out after 8 p.m. Some communities take this very seriously. Others just kind of use it as a guideline, and I think we fall into that latter category. So if you have any feedback on that, let us know. Please also note in your packet this evening, you had some handouts, two additional items. One was the leaf pickup schedule, which begins soon. With the dry weather, we've got leaves coming down already. So we'll be getting busy on that shortly. As of right this very second, people are still bagging. So we'll continue with that until we're fully geared up and ready to go. And we should be able to do that by the beginning of the schedule. Also, too, in your packet was some information on the census. I can't believe how fast time goes, but I've not been here with you guys for this census period, so maybe give that some thought on how you want to approach. Again, some communities do this differently. Some communities will appoint committees, sort of informal advisory committees to kind of help the process of making sure that we're accurately counting town residents. As the information indicates, the letter from the governor, this is very critical to make sure that we're getting our proper funding levels, be it through Powell bill or through other forms of federal and state assistance. So very, very much associated with our population numbers. So let's make sure we keep track of that. Street fair, as we've indicated, is coming up here shortly. This weekend, as a matter of fact, the number of booths are up from last year. We're taking even more effort to avoid duplication of things that folks are selling. I believe there's a question at the last meeting about hours, and just to confirm, we are setting up at 6:30 a.m. It begins officially at 10 a.m. and we break down officially at 5 p.m. And it's in the same location, just off of Hillsborough Street. Some other items that reach a little bit more critical level of importance. We talked about Hearn Road water system improvements. Today, I believe we have an RFQ. I have an RFQ that we're reviewing and will be releasing in the next day or two for design work for water system improvements up on Hearn Road, as we discussed in previous meetings. Essentially, what we would be looking at is upsizing a portion of our system, mainly on Hearn Road, and adding hydrants as well. What's not really determined, and you can't see, I should have added a different map. What you can't really see on this is whether or not we would be reviewing the possibility of there's more or less a connection, a crude connection to kind of, if you extend this with the water plant being roughly over in this area here, there is some connection that kind of goes back into this neighborhood. We're not really sure how we're going to address that yet. I think we need to at least think about it. The upsizing we have in this area, knocking on wood at this point in time, appears to be affordable, but we've got a little bit of work to do before we finalize our plans on that. And so I think in the upcoming meetings within, let's say by the 27th, we should be finalizing a contract for that, have design services performed over the course of December, be looking at breaking ground on it probably sometime early spring. By crude timeline of the evening.
I'd like to just mention the extension of the size of the line, that it's not that much more expensive to go with an 8-inch line than a 6-inch line, but you get virtually twice the capacity with an 8-inch line. And so fire protection is critical. And the delivery of volume and pressure, an 8-inch line will be far better.
Yeah, it's going to be markedly improved going from what it is now. Yeah, I'm not trying to downplay at all what you're saying. In fact, I think we're going to have to also consider, I forget where I left off with Fred, and I haven't seen this RFQ on this yet or not. I've talked about it, but we may be looking at some additional pressure reducing valves needed in that area anytime you go, as you'll recall, from Hillsborough Street. The other projects we've done, anytime you go from a low pressure environment to a higher pressure environment, that kind of plays havoc at times with people's systems. So we're going to have to sort out how we address some of that hardware as well. That's not a killer necessarily cost-wise, but it's a cost. So we'll have more information on that. Impact fees will be also going out with another RFQ this week in financial services, releasing an RFQ for financial services related to revision of our water and sewer impact fees and right-sizing those. Today, I met with county staff and with the consultant for work. I indicated here in the other items that it was RFQ for government annex, old ag building, and Dunlap building. They're calling that the government complex master plan now, so I'll be referring to it probably as something different on that in the near future. There's a little bit of work involved with that in terms of building program or space use analysis, similar to what we're going to be doing with the town hall. But also taking a look at the overall use of that area, those buildings that include the current administration building or annex, the old ag building, the Dunlap building, and a lot of that property, the area of the gas station, Hardee's, I think the building that they lease and have had Parks and Rec, and all of that area will be planted. The approach that I've taken, and I think we might want to have a conversation about this in the near future, but the approach that I've taken in sitting at that table with them has been to carry forward some of the discussion or all of the discussion that I've heard mainly through the Downtown Vision Plan, but also too some of the work that we would be doing with Town Hall, but mainly the Vision Plan. And you recall that the goals for that particular area would have been, and I apologize for not having this diagram up as I speak, but the goal for that area, as you recall from the Vision Plan, was to basically remove the annex building that's south of the traffic circle, which kind of, I think we had some county, at the time that the Vision Plan was being assembled, we had some county board participation with that. We didn't really have much in the way of staff. So when staff saw that, I can't go to a meeting without being the butt of some joke. I think it's really funny. Oh, you're going to knock down our administration building. Maybe we should knock down your town hall. Ha ha ha. You know, I just said that was just part of the Vision Plan. I think that Vision Plan contemplated more open space in the downtown, and that was the point. Not only more open space, but to kind of improve the vista between the historic courthouse and the new courthouse. And that old annex building kind of gets in the way. And so I said from that standpoint, that's really as far as any input I can provide, that's what I would be carrying forward. And then second would be, from the Vision Plan, would be a concern over parking and the need for more parking in your downtown area. Now, there are events that take place in the downtown, street fair, and so on, where we do use some of that county parking that's in the area. That could be enhanced and improved. On a day-to-day basis, the business owners, and folks can correct it if I'm wrong, Commissioner Farrell as well, downtown business owners don't report that they get a lot of use out of that parking that's south of the courthouse. If the annex building wasn't there, if that was reconfigured, that might change. But those are kind of the two strategies going into it that as far as input that I have. If you guys have any other thoughts on the matter, if you want to take this up in a more formal conversation, let me know, because we're going to get involved with it. They'll be having some internal meetings as part of this process. I believe they'll have some charretting with the public on this process, and I did get them to commit to providing you with a presentation on it as soon as they have some more information presented. So you'll get another crack at it.
Because I remember the saying was that space between the historic courthouse and the Justice Center, they were saying that the downtown would need what they call the beach. There's a place for outdoor concerts, a place for people to hang out. So I think the original vision, my impression was that it wouldn't be a parking lot. It would be like space for concerts and for gathering.
Yeah, and I apologize if I'm overstating. If I talk too long about parking, I think open space was the primary. That's what I mentioned to them first. Yeah. But I did say that parking is also a concern of that vision plan. Is it a concern of that vision plan in that area? It should be enhanced, but it's not the primary concern.
Yeah, the idea was to have to create this feeling of even if you don't know what's going on downtown, right, you just go there.
A public space that's a destination.
Right, exactly.
So, anyway, really excited to be involved with that, and it does tie in. It does, like I said, tie in nicely to the town hall work. Because a lot of what they're talking about contemplates what kind of space that they need for administrative purposes. Long story short. So.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous opportunity for the town and the county to be collaborative on both projects.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, we'll be doing a little bit more of that. If you have any other thoughts on it, or if you take any other thoughts from citizens or from downtown business owners, please let me know, and I'll do my best. EV charging stations. If I can talk with maybe Commissioner Bottas after the meeting, before I go too far into that one. we've got, I did get an invitation for bid out to a couple of additional vendors. Our existing vendor may want to rework their bid. And I want to talk, Commissioner Bonnet's had another suggestion over the weekend, and I want to kind of suss that out a little bit. North side water system improvements, work out there continues. I believe I'm told that the water main on Russet Run that was put in this past summer is being chlorinated. Very soon we'll be testing welds on the water tower, and once everything is fine with that, then we're looking at priming and then painting a lovely shade of light blue. And I think the estimate for service is sometime in February of 2018. But that can be a crude estimate.
Does that mean that we get to decide what to paint on the water tower? I remember there being some very amusing discussions of that several months, years ago, or whatever. I see nodding in the back of the room.
Yep, you got a lot of local artists who may do some artwork up there.
Yeah.
It's for us, Logan.
Or, yeah, it's for us. Yeah. Doesn't work for that. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
No, fine. Just one more other thing. I will be out of the office between October 31st and, like I said, here November 3rd, which is Friday. I may come back, depending on when I can get in on Sunday, I may come back in on that following Tuesday, which is the 6th. So I can put out an email reminder if you want, but I can, even though I'm out of the state, I can still be contacted on it. So. And that's all I can think of right at the moment. Thank you.
Great. I'd like to add that Fred Royal sent us on conducted a wonderful tour of the downtown BMP, but it's not called the BMP anymore. Rain Garden. But it was following the Chatham Conservation meeting, and so there was this absolutely lovely group of very interested citizens gathered in the northwest quadrant at the courthouse circle, learning about stormwater, and Fred really enjoyed giving that tour, and it was very informative. Everyone really enjoyed it. So we're at Commissioner's concern.
One question. On that point, I think planting is happening this week.
That's right.
We know when that's happening?
This coming week.
I understood it was going to be Friday. They'll remove the gravel and then put in mulch, and there's going to hopefully be a map of the kinds of plants, because they will vary from section to section, and so there'll be more sturdy plants at the beginning and filter down to the less sturdy plants or something. But they'll all be native and non-invasive. So,
and there will be times when the plants are dormant.
Right.
And so we want to say to folks who say, "What did you plant in there?" But they're just dormant. They're coming back.
People ask if we ever going to put benches in there, like in the picture. We have these.
Yeah, those we kind of left open-ended. If somebody wants to donate benches, that we don't currently have a budget for that right now. The thinking is that we are kind of maybe trying to seek donation opportunities for folks, but that's really your pleasure how you want to handle that ultimately.
Well, we just had a bench delivery reported today. I let Mr. Griesbeck know about it. State Boys Credit Union has purchased a bench for the east sidewalk, and Brian Griesbeck indicated that staff would be able to put that in, do the concrete bolt work and all of that. And State Boys Credit Union is thrilled, absolutely. First Bank is next on the list, and they should be coming in with a bench very, very soon. So.
I'll let Mr. Clark know that. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Clark will be.
Please do. Yeah.
When was that tour?
The 19th.
No, the tour that you had with the BMP was that was the 19th.
These are interesting programs, and I felt several in there. Oh, it's really good. We know one time that we're down to the river and we look at biology and we talked about frogs and he used to be walking on the trail and just pick up and grab a snake we hadn't even seen.
I'll just have to confirm when I'm not sure exactly when the plans will be going, because I know that in order to get the gravel removed, we had to go outside to get it removed. There was some reason we couldn't get it moved in-house this week. And so we may have to go outside to one of our landscape folks to help us pitch wood mulch and so forth. A couple of guys with a shovel sort of come to get it out. I don't know whether that was happening this week.
Where? Sorry, I'm just going to mulch and get it.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to complicate things. The people that typically throw mulch down forests and parks are going to help us, at least the last I talked to Fred, going to help us get the gravel out of the BMPs
In order to plant.
and then in order to plant. And I haven't heard right now as I speak what exactly that was going to happen.
Someday it'd be great to have an information on there so people realize what it is.
I think Greg mentioned that.
Yeah, well, that was a recommendation from the Main Street program because of the dormancy of these plans that you can identify. Right, and it is educational.
Speaking of other field trips, when the folks from Waste Management were here, and Brian Grusbeck and I met with them about 3 weeks ago, they indicated a willingness to take us on a tour of their facility. Now, that may not be high on your list, but it is absolutely high on my list. The Waste Management, the
Transfer facility?
the transfer and the recycling facility.
Oh, MRF 2.
I think that would just be really, I mean,
Yeah.
don't eat lunch first. But if you're interested, why don't you sort of give me a nod and let me know what.
Autumn would be a good time for that.
Would it? Yes. Let us do
Better
it.
than July, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
From experience.
Good.
Yeah, count me in if I'm available.
Yeah. Jay Farrell, do you have some commissioner concerns?
I just have one. I was reading an article in that Southern City again, and I guess this question might be for Mr. Messick, about this HB 436. Has that been to where the town can add the fees back in? Has it been settled in the legislature?
Yes, sir. That's what Mr. Brucebeck was talking about, the RFQ. We'll have to hire a consultant to help with that.
Okay. I must have been asleep then.
It was late.
Not as late as it sounds. Beth?
A few things. One, I was driving past Lowe's the other evening and saw the new restaurant, and it was packed.
Good.
And it draws my attention to just exactly how dark the road is at the top of the hill. We've got a sidewalk on that roadway, and we have not a single street light. I'd be curious to know why we don't have street lights and what it would take to get them in there, because I think it's pretty important.
If you're looking at sort of conventional Cobra lighting, it's relatively simple without knowing what the electrical lay of the land is. It's a matter of contacting you and having to draw something up.
Yeah.
If you're looking at something more neo-traditional, then you have to start getting the cost.
You mean like LED lights?
No, I mean if you're looking the type of light, if you're looking at something like a fancy light pole, it's not a Cobra light.
No. Well, I'm not thinking Cobra, but I'm definitely thinking there's standard run-of-the-mill street light.
That's a Cobra.
No, it's not called a Cobra any longer, but it's an LED. It's the same thing, single pole, arm out over the street, light.
I'm getting old.
No, they're
I
changing.
still call those Cobras.
Exactly. They're changing terms on it.
Okay.
The other thing, just wanted to check in on the kiosk coordination at CCCC. I ran into Mark, I guess it was Friday, at the opportunity thing, and he said he had to run something past his board, and
so.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Mark yet.
Okay.
I've been talking to John about it, but
I think he said he needed some photos of what it is, just to show the board if there was an issue, but wanted to present it to them, so.
I will follow up with him as well.
Nothing?
One last thing, I had the pleasure of attending a groundbreaking ceremony with Pamela Baldwin yesterday, and what a lovely event down at Union Grove Family Zion Church, her home church, and as I said to the congregation, you know, there are wonderful things about cutting ribbons and welcoming new businesses in town, but there's also something really wonderful about the church adding on and needing new space, fellowship hall. So,
And when the church opened this week.
that's right. And Postal Fish opened.
Yeah.
So,
We put that on Facebook, and it's very popular.
yeah.
They're probably going to
Well, and when I was introduced to one of the owners at Opportunity Chatham, and said, I haven't been able to be with you yet, he said, please don't come.
Probably get plans, but there was a lot of it.
So, anything else, or is there?
One thought. We talked about, we're not posting here about inviting Girl Scouts to places, but we could follow the Scouts and invite veterans.
Yes, well, that would be very nice. I'll talk with people at the DFW. We do have a Girl Scout troop coming to be with us in November, and they're from Northern Chatham, and they're doing a civics badge as well, and offering to lead the pledge. So that'd be nice.
Mayor, clarifying question. We have two resolutions for November 13th. One on the SAP and dividend, and one on basic energy rate hikes. Or do we want to have
Or
that?
do you want to spread them out, whatever? This one, the big energy has no urgency out
Yep, it's in November that they need the comments. Yeah, Mayor should present a draft. That's all right, I'll be happy to present it. The draft, carbon dividend.
He didn't give us draft.
No, but I have a draft. Yeah, that was circulated by email.
Okay. Would you circulate it first? Okay, great. Anything else?
The only thing that I had was, have we had any response when we had our last meeting about the line going to Sanford? Have we, we've had.
Oh, in our closed session?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, we haven't taken any steps to coordinate with the Chatham Park. Have not.
Yes, no response.
I hear thunder.
Also mentioned earlier this week that EPC is first offering classes for kids after school. New program that you're going to know about. The workshops for students fifth grade through middle school, participating in learning-based activities that are fun, and they're on Saturday. So there's all kinds of lasers and lights, robotics, cosmetics, chemistry. We've got October, November, and December.
Wow.
It's right here this way.
And one other thing, and that is, I made a very bad mistake by not thinking to invite the family of Wilbur Bryant to last week when we had our memorial resolution for him. So his girls will be with us in November for the presentation of the resolution for their father, and may bring their mother, who is not in good health, but nonetheless may be able to make it. So that will be replicated, and I know that we'll welcome them when they come.
Is there any chance that whoever is developing these resolutions could forward those, maybe we can put those out on the package or whatever you're comfortable doing that?
I'll send them right after the meeting.
All right.
there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by John Bonnet, seconded by Michael Gill. Those in favor, please rise.
Just FYI, the bottom is about to fall out. Just
Your phone went off a while ago, said you got a tornado
already.
warning here. Good to see you. Isn't that good?